The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke still rose from the broken tanks and burned ships. The war between the humans and the alien race called the Varnak had just ended, but the land was still filled with the smell of fire, metal, and death. Corporal Dean Riker walked slowly across the wreckage. His boots crunched on ash and broken glass. His helmet was scratched, and his uniform was torn, but he was alive. Many others were not. Dean was part of a human cleanup unit. Their job was to check the area, look for survivors, and collect any weapons or data. But Dean wasn't like the others. While most soldiers joked or kicked at dead machines, Dean was silent. He kept his eyes and ears open. Something didn't feel right. As he passed the ruins of a giant Varnak war machine, he heard a soft, strange sound. It wasn't metal or wind. It sounded like a groan, a low, painful groan. Dean stopped. He stepped closer to the wreckage. The groan came again, louder this time. He pulled out his small scanner. It beeped. A life form detected. Cautiously, Dean moved some fallen metal aside. Beneath the debris, he saw it. A massive Varnak warrior lay crushed under steel and stone. His purple skin was burned, and his armor was cracked. One of his arms was gone. His legs were twisted, unmoving, but his chest was still rising. Barely. The Varnak opened one eye and looked at Dean. For a moment they stared at each other. Enemy. That's what everyone had called the Varnak. Monsters, beasts, killers. But this one looked broken, not dangerous, not evil, just hurt, just lost. Dean should have called for backup, should have walked away. That's what his team would do. That's what his orders said. But something in the alien's eyes stopped him. Dean took a step forward. The Varnak growled weakly. Kill me. Now. His voice was deep and full of pain. He didn't beg. He didn't cry. He just wanted it to end. Dean knelt down. I'm not going to kill you. The Varnak looked confused. You're paralyzed, Dean said, scanning him again. Your spine is broken. You can't walk. The alien closed his eyes. Then I am dead already. Dean sat back. He looked around. No one else was nearby. The war was over. The enemy was finished. But did that mean mercy was over too? Dean grabbed his radio. Riker to base, area clear, no survivors. He lied. He turned off the radio. Then he pulled off his backpack and started clearing more debris. It took time and strength, but he worked silently. The Varnak just watched him. You help me? The alien asked, surprised. Dean nodded. Yeah, I do. The Varnak blinked. Why? Dean shrugged. Because everyone else left you. Because you're still breathing. Because if our places were switched, maybe you'd do the same. The alien gave a soft laugh. No, my people would kill you. Dean raised an eyebrow. Then maybe your people need to learn something new. He tied metal rods and fabric together to make a stretcher. It wasn't perfect, but it could carry the alien. Dean worked fast, time was short. If the other humans found out, they might shoot the alien, or Dean himself. What's your name? Dean asked. Tharkesh, the alien said. General, Tharkesh of the Varnak Flame Guard. Well, Tharkesh, Dean said, lifting him carefully onto the stretcher. I'm Corporal Dean Riker, human medic, and you're not dying today. Tharkesh looked up at the sky. It was dark, filled with red clouds from the war. He took a deep breath and whispered, Strange mercy, human. Dean didn't answer. He just gripped the stretcher handles and started walking, alone, carrying a giant alien warrior through the ashes of war. The wind howled across the field, and far in the distance, something else moved in the ruins. Watching. Dean Riker moved slowly through the wreckage, dragging the stretcher behind him. The alien warrior, Tharkesh, was heavy. He weighed more than 2 full soldiers. But Dean didn't stop. Every few steps, he looked around to make sure no one was watching. The sky above was turning orange as the twin suns of the planet began to rise. The light made the broken metal and black ash shine like glass. Fires still burned in the distance, small but stubborn. Tharkesh groaned. His large hand gripped the edge of the stretcher. "You shouldn't do this," he said, voice low. "Your people will see me as an enemy. They will punish you." Dean kept walking. "I know." "Then why?" Dean didn't answer right away. His face was tense, focused. "Because I've seen too much death already. Maybe saving one life will help me sleep tonight." They passed the ruins of a Varnak tank. Dean moved around it carefully. Every second out in the open was a risk. His radio buzzed. "Riker, report your position. We need you back at camp for debrief. Over." Dean didn't answer. He walked faster. Again the radio crackled. "Riker, do you copy? There are reports of surviving Varnak in your zone. If found, do not engage. Terminate immediately. That's an order." Dean froze. The words "terminate" immediately rang in his ears. Tharkesh looked up. "They will kill me." Dean grabbed the radio. His hands were shaking. "This is Riker," he said. "Area clear. No survivors here. Just wreckage. Heading back now. Over." He turned the radio off. "You lied," Tharkesh said. Dean looked down at him. "No, I told the truth I wanted to live in." Tharkesh stared at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You are not like the others." They reached a broken wall and took cover behind it. Dean wiped sweat from his forehead. The sun was hotter now and he was exhausted. Tharkesh closed his eyes. "You could be court-martialed, imprisoned, killed." Dean leaned against the wall. "Maybe. But if I leave you here, I'll be dead. Inside anyway." There was silence for a while. Then, out of nowhere, Tharkesh whispered, "I studied Earth." Dean turned to him. "What?" "I studied your people," the alien said. "Your soldiers, your battles, your history." "Why?" "To defeat you," Tharkesh said simply, "but also to understand you. And in your old books, your heroes never left the wounded behind." Dean looked at him, surprised. "You read our books?" "I liked one," Tharkesh said, "about a man who walked into enemy fire to save a friend." Dean gave a small smile. "You're talking about Sergeant Michael Roth. That book made me join the army." Tharkesh nodded. "He was brave, like you." Dean's face turned serious again. "I'm not brave, I'm just tired of hate." He stood up. "We keep moving. There's an old Varnak outpost 3 miles east. Maybe there's shelter." Tharkesh's breathing was slower now. "You risk everything for me." "Why?" Dean tightened the grip on the stretcher. "Because maybe, just maybe, saving you will stop another war before it starts." They moved again. Behind them, high in the sky, a small scout drone blinked red. It had seen them. The sun beat down hard. The air was dry and sharp like broken glass. Dean Riker's hands burned from gripping the metal stretcher. His shoulders ached. His legs trembled. But he didn't stop. Behind him, the paralyzed alien warrior, Tharkesh, lay silent, his chest rising and falling slowly. Every step forward was a fight against pain. Dean reached a narrow valley of twisted steel and black stone. The ruins of both human and Varnak machines were scattered everywhere. He paused, panting, and wiped the sweat from his face. "We need to rest," he muttered to himself. Tharkesh opened one eye. "We're being followed." Dean stiffened. "How do you know?" "I can feel it," Tharkesh said. "The air changes when death is near." Dean quickly scanned the area. Nothing, just wind and smoke. But then, a screech. Not human. Not alien. Something worse. Dean ducked behind a broken pillar. The stretcher thudded down. "Stay low," he whispered. From the far end of the valley came crawling a creature. It moved like a shadow, silent and fast. Its body was thin, long, with claws that scraped against the metal. Its eyes glowed red. "A carrion beast," Tharkesh said. "It eats the dying." The creature sniffed the air and turned toward them. Dean pulled out his sidearm, a small plasma pistol. It wasn't powerful, but it was all he had. You can't fight it alone, Tharkesh warned. Dean nodded. I know, the beast charged. Dean fired. Blue sparks lit the air. One shot hit the beast's leg, slowing it. The creature screeched again and leapt at Dean. He rolled aside just in time and fired 2 more shots. This time one struck its eye. The creature fell back, howling. Dean stood ready to fire again, but the gun clicked. Empty. The beast roared and pounced. Suddenly, a sharp piece of metal flew through the air, striking the creature's other eye. The beast shrieked and staggered back. Dean turned. Tharkesh had thrown a broken rod from the wreckage, using just his upper body strength. The alien's arm dropped, weak from effort. Finish it, he growled. Dean ran forward, picked up a long spike of steel and stabbed the creature through its neck. It fell, silent and still. Dean dropped to his knees, panting hard. You saved my life, he said. And you saved mine, Tharkesh replied. For a few moments they sat in silence. Then Dean laughed. You're supposed to be the one on the stretcher. Next time, Tharkesh said, almost smiling. Dean dragged the stretcher to a shaded place between 2 rocks. He sat beside the alien and opened a small ration pack. The food was dry and tasteless, but it was something. Dean handed a piece to Tharkesh. Eat. Tharkesh sniffed it. Smells like rubber. Tastes worse. They both ate in silence. Dean looked at the dead beast. How did you throw that? You can't even move your legs. I trained every part of my body, Tharkesh said. Even in weakness there is strength. Dean nodded. That's a warrior's mindset. Tharkesh looked up at the sky. This world used to be green, full of trees and rivers. Dean frowned. I thought it was always a war zone. It became one, because we made it that way. Dean looked around at the ruins, then at Tharkesh. Do you think it can heal? Maybe, the alien said softly. If people like you survive. The wind shifted. Smoke blew past them. Dean stood up. We can't stay here long. That drone from earlier may have called backup. Then we go, Tharkesh said. Dean lifted the stretcher again. With blood on his hands and fire at his back, he stepped forward. Through ruins. Through fear, through the unknown, carrying not just a wounded warrior, but a fragile hope. The night came fast on this dying world. Cold winds howled through the steel skeletons of war machines and stars blinked above like silent watchers. Dean Riker had found an old wrecked bunker, half buried in ash and rock. It wasn't safe, but it was hidden. It would have to do. Inside, Dean lit a small emergency lamp. The soft light flickered across cracked walls and old bloodstains. He laid Tharkesh gently on a dry corner, then collapsed nearby, exhausted. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Outside, the wind screamed like ghosts. Finally, Tharkesh broke the silence. You could have left me. Many times. Dean looked up from his boots. I know. Why didn't you? Dean leaned back against the cold wall. Because you're not what I was told. You're not a monster. You're just like us. Tharkesh gave a bitter laugh. No. I was trained to kill humans before I could even speak your language. Dean stared at the floor. I was trained to kill anything with purple skin. They both fell silent again. Tharkesh's voice was quiet this time. I had a brother once. Strong. Brave. He led the first charge against Earth's fleet. What happened? Dean asked. He died, Tharkesh said. Hit by a human sniper, I swore revenge. I became a general. I promised I'd wipe out your species. Dean nodded slowly. I lost my brother too. His ship exploded during the first orbital strike. I joined up to get even. They looked at each other. Enemy warriors, both broken by war, both shaped by pain. Funny, isn't it? Dean said. We both started this to take lives. But here we are, trying to save one. Tharkesh's eyes softened. War changes nothing, but pain can open eyes. Dean pulled out a small bottle. of water and handed it over. Tharkesh took it with shaking hands and drank. "I never thought I'd drink water given by a human," the alien said. Dean smiled. "I never thought I'd call an alien my friend." "Friend," Tharkesh repeated, tasting the word like it was strange and new. "I like that." Dean pulled out a small device from his pocket. "It's a pain blocker. Won't fix your legs, but might help you sleep." He attached it gently to Tharkesh's neck. The alien shivered as it activated, and his breathing eased. Dean took out his old communication logbook and flipped through pages filled with names of fallen friends, forgotten locations, and half-written messages. He paused, then wrote, "A new entry. 0407 hours. Found peace in an enemy's eyes. Maybe peace isn't made in meetings or treaties. Maybe it's made right here, between two people who refuse to hate." Tharkesh looked at him. "When this is over, your leaders will still hate mine." "Then we change the leaders," Dean said. "One act at a time." The alien gave a slow nod. "If I ever walk again, I'll speak your name before my council. They will hear what you did." "And I'll speak yours," Dean said, "if they let me live that long." Outside, the wind calmed. The stars above looked a little brighter. In the bunker, wounded, tired, hunted, two warriors from different worlds shared food, stories, and silence. For the first time since the war began, they both felt something new, not fear, not hate, but something like hope. Morning light spilled through the cracks of the bunker. Dean Riker rubbed his eyes and stretched his sore arms. His back ached from sleeping on cold stone, and his hands were still blistered from dragging the stretcher. But he felt something inside him that was harder to describe, a weight of worry. Tharkesh was still asleep, his breathing slow and steady. Dean checked the pain blocker and adjusted it gently. The alien stirred, but didn't wake. He looked, more at peace than before. Dean stepped outside. The war-torn valley was quiet. Too quiet. He opened his comms device and sent a coded message to a nearby recon station. It was a lie, carefully shaped. Found old Varnak tech, possible survivor data. Inside, request evac at Site 29. He left out one detail. Tharkesh was still alive. He waited. 30 minutes passed. Then the reply came. Copy. Team en route. 10 minutes. Prepare for handoff. Dean looked back at the bunker. His gut twisted. This was risky, but he needed help. Tharkesh needed medical care. Real care. Maybe if he explained the truth, showed them what he'd seen, just maybe, they'd listen. The evac team arrived in a hovercraft with 3 soldiers, 2 men, 1 woman. They wore black armor with red armbands, elite response. Dean stepped forward. Glad you came. I've got something important inside. You need to see him. One of the soldiers narrowed his eyes. Him? Dean nodded. Yes. He's injured. He's not a threat. I saved him. The soldiers looked at each other. Dean led them inside. Tharkesh was awake now, watching. He didn't move or speak. The female soldier's face changed the moment she saw him. Her mouth twisted. You brought a Varnak here? Dean held up his hands. Listen, he's paralyzed. He's not dangerous. I've spent 2 days with him. He's intelligent, honorable. He saved my life. The lead soldier stepped forward. You're aware this is a direct violation of Command Protocol 14C. Harboring a live enemy combatant during a declared ceasefire is treason. Treason? Dean said. He's helpless. You want to shoot a wounded man? The soldier raised his weapon. I want to follow orders. Tharkesh locked eyes with Dean. No fear, just acceptance. It's all right, he said calmly. They don't see what you see. Dean stepped in front of him. If you want to shoot him, you'll have to shoot me first. There was silence. The soldier hesitated. Dean's voice was steady now. You think this war ended just because guns stopped firing? It didn't. It'll keep going, in our hearts, unless someone breaks the cycle. I'm doing that, right now. Don't. Stop it. The soldiers still didn't lower their weapons. Then a small sound, Beep beep came from the comm device on the lead soldier's arm. A message. He tapped it and read aloud. Change of orders. High Command requesting live capture of Varnak. Officer, transfer to Black Site Alpha. Dean's heart sank. A black site. That meant interrogation, torture, disappearance. No, Dean said. You're not taking him. The female soldier stepped forward. You don't have a choice. Dean slowly pulled out his sidearm. I do now. The room froze. You're pointing that at your own team, she said. I'm pointing it at murderers, Dean replied. The silence cracked. Then a fourth voice spoke, weak but clear. Let them take me, Dean. Dean turned. Tharkesh was trying to sit up, using only his arms. I won't let you fall for me. I've fought enough battles. No, Dean said, eyes burning. I didn't carry you this far just to lose you to a prison cell. One of the soldiers moved. Dean reacted fast, disarmed him and shoved him back. Then chaos. Blasts fired, metal clanged, and in the mess, Dean triggered a flash grenade from his belt. White light exploded through the bunker. When the smoke cleared, Dean and Tharkesh were gone. Tracks led out through the back tunnel, barely visible. The soldiers stood in stunned silence. The leader radioed in. Target escaped. Human soldier aiding enemy, confirming defection. Far from the bunker, deep in the ruins, Dean pushed the stretcher again through broken stone paths. You risked everything, Tharkesh whispered. Dean didn't look back. So did you. Now we finish this together. The wind howled like a wounded beast across the red cliffs of the wasteland. Dean Riker tightened the cloth around his bleeding arm as he pushed the stretcher forward. Each step was slower now. His body was tired, broken. But he wouldn't stop. Behind him, Tharkesh grunted in pain. You're bleeding too much. Dean looked over his shoulder. So are you. The alien gave a faint smile. Touché. They had escaped the soldiers, but not without a price. Dean had taken a plasma burn to the arm. The pain flared with every move, but adrenaline kept him going. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the rocks. They had made it to the edge of a ruined satellite base, one of the oldest structures from the first human landing on the planet. Now it was just bones of steel and forgotten tech. Dean pulled the stretcher into the old control room. Half the ceiling had collapsed, but the place still had power. Barely. A broken console sparked as he passed. We can hide here tonight, Dean said. I'll try to send a signal. Tharkesh struggled to sit up. You still think someone will help us? Dean wiped sweat from his brow. Not from my side, but maybe yours. He placed a beacon transmitter on a cracked desk and adjusted its frequency. If anyone from the Varnak side is listening, they'll come for you. Tharkesh frowned. And what about you? Dean didn't answer. The alien stared at him. You'll be arrested. Maybe worse. Dean sat down hard, exhausted. Then I hope they take me alive. Suddenly, the beacon lit up. A signal blinked, green, before either of them could react. Boom! A wall exploded. Dust filled the air. Dean jumped to his feet and pulled his weapon. Through the smoke stepped not soldiers, but machines. Black, spidery drones, human-made, hunter class. No mercy. No warnings, ambush, Dean hissed. They tracked the signal. 5 drones skittered into the room, their red eyes locking onto Tharkesh first. Target acquired. Dean fired. One drone dropped instantly, but the other split, flanking him. Tharkesh reached for a broken pipe. On the floor. He couldn't move his legs, but he had strength in his arms. As one drone leapt toward him, he swung hard, crushing its head. Dean rolled to the side, avoiding a laser blast. We need cover. They ducked behind a steel beam. Sparks flew around them, the air smelled of smoke and plasma. Dean reloaded quickly. We make our last stand here. Tharkesh nodded. Then let's make it count. Together they fought. Dean fired with deadly aim, taking out another drone with a headshot. Tharkesh used his body weight to pull one close and stabbed it with broken metal. The alien roared with pain and fury, but there were more coming. Dean glanced at Tharkesh. "How many can you handle?" "As many as it takes," he growled. Dean set a thermal charge on the wall. "Then we give them a surprise." The drones moved in for a final strike. Dean waited until the last second, then triggered the charge. Boom! The wall exploded outward, sending fire and debris across the room. The force threw Dean and Tharkesh backward. Metal rained from above. Then, silence. Dean coughed, eyes stinging from smoke. "You alive?" Tharkesh groaned. "Mostly. Only one drone remained, twitching, half destroyed." Dean stood up slowly, limping. He raised his weapon, but stopped. The drone wasn't attacking. It was scanning. Voice came through its speaker, deep, alien, familiar. "Tharkesh, this is Commander Vial of the Varnak Union. We received your signal. Stand by." Dean lowered his weapon. They came. Tharkesh closed his eyes, overwhelmed. Minutes later, a large Varnak dropship descended from the sky, its engines shaking. The ground. Soldiers, real ones, not machines, rushed out. They aimed their weapons at Dean. Tharkesh shouted weakly, "He is not the enemy! He is the reason I'm alive!" The Varnak soldiers hesitated, then lowered their weapons. Dean collapsed, to the ground, finally letting go of the weight he carried. The war might not be over yet, but something greater had begun. The stars above burned bright over the new Varnak human peace colony, built where the final battle once stood. The land, once covered in ash and bones, was now home to gardens, schools, and children of two species playing together. The wind carried, not the sound of war, but laughter. In the center of the colony stood a monument, two statues, one human, one Varnak. Corporal Dean Riker stood tall, one hand resting on his belt, eyes carved to look forward with calm strength. Beside him, General Tharkesh sat proudly in a battle chair, his massive hands folded across his chest, eyes filled with honor. The plaque below read, "They were enemies by blood, but brothers by choice." Memorial of the last mercy 6 months had passed since the day Dean and Tharkesh made their final stand in the ruins. After the Varnak dropship rescued them, Dean was taken into custody by both sides. The humans called him a traitor. The Varnak called him a question. But then, Tharkesh spoke. He spoke before the Varnak High Council, still weak, still healing. His voice cracked, but his words were strong. He told them of a human who carried him across a battlefield, who gave him water and hope, who risked death for an enemy. He called Dean not a soldier, but a hero. At the same time, the recordings from Dean's suit were leaked to human media. Footage showed him saving Tharkesh, protecting him, fighting drones, and choosing mercy over hatred. The people spoke louder than the politicians. Dean was cleared of all charges, but he didn't return to his old unit. He didn't want a medal or a title. Instead, he stayed on Varnak soil. As a teacher, he and Tharkesh opened the first Unity Academy, where young Varnak and humans learned together, side by side. One morning, Dean sat on a bench near the statue, watching a group of children practice drills. Tharkesh rolled up beside him in a hover chair. Though his legs never healed, he said he was stronger now than ever. "You look tired," Tharkesh said. Dean smiled. "That's what peace does. No bullets, just bedtime stories." Tharkesh chuckled. "We used to measure our worth by how many enemies we killed." Dean looked at the kids. "Now we measure it by how many minds we open." A small human boy ran up, carrying a book. "Sir, can you sign this? It's the one about the Battle of the Bunker." Dean took the book gently. "Sure, kid." The boy looked at Tharkesh. "You too, sir. My dad says you're the strongest warrior he's ever heard of." Tharkesh leaned down. "Strength is not just muscles, little one. It's doing the right thing even when it hurts." The boy nodded, eyes wide. He ran off, book in hand. Dean watched him go. Funny, isn't it? We were trained to destroy each other, and now we're role models. Tharkesh's voice turned serious. Do you regret it? Dean shook his head. Not for a second. He looked up at the statue, his own face frozen, in steel. I didn't want to be remembered as a soldier, Dean said. I wanted to be remembered as a man who chose life. Tharkesh looked at the same statue. You are remembered as more than that, Dean. You're the first human to be honored in the Hall of Varnak bloodlines. Dean laughed. Sounds scary. It means your family, Tharkesh said. The two warriors sat in silence for a moment. Then Dean stood. Let's get to class. The kids are waiting. Tharkesh rolled forward. They better be ready. Today's lesson is on surviving a drone ambush using a metal pipe. Dean smiled. Classic. Together they moved toward the academy, side by side, not as enemies, not even just as friends, but as the living proof that war does not have to be the end of a story. Sometimes it's only the beginning of peace.